Welcome to another episode of Right Brain Rounds, and today I have Dr. Lara Tharler with me, and she is just awesome. I just need to tell you how awesome this woman is. And I met her online. She has a wonderful coaching community. We did kind of a talk together, a group meeting kind of about pregnancy, loss, grief. And it was then that she just really touched my heart because she was reaching out to so many people to have them tell their stories about pregnancy while in medical training and, other topics that are a little bit difficult to talk about. So thank you so much, Dr. Tharler. I'm so happy to speak with you today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Like, what an introduction. I couldn't be more thrilled to connect and to have this time with you.
Yes. And I know you talk quite a bit about your training, your journey through medical training and, things that happen to you, and you're very authentic, real, and you put it out there for everyone else to see. So I'm really interested in knowing, you're a physician and a coach, and, how did all of this kind of come into play?
Well, as we hate when patients say, right? Like, it all started in second grade when I read Elizabeth Blackwell, The First Woman Doctor. To some extent, it did start there. I was one of those people that knew my path from second grade, fell in love with medicine. But we'll fast forward because it's required in this journey. But for me, I had my own road. I was always, from age 14 to 16, very into occult philosophy, Eastern methods of healing, meditation. I had a strong meditation practice by age 16, probably as a result of some of my own trauma, having a sick parent and some other things that are really common in those of us that go into medicine, right? We all are writing those essays, I think, about how medicine and healing has touched us. So I came from that. And I took a road to get into even medical training. I moved to Santa Monica, California at age 20, graduated from college and studied acupuncture, Chinese medicine, had a mentor at Cedars-Sinai, so was in a hospital, but learning really 7 days a week as a very impressionable 20-year-old about what does it really mean to heal the body? Can you die unhealed? Can you heal and die? Like, really separating out those relationships and those deeper questions, and using diet, nutrition, meditation, spirituality as modalities in my individual healing journey, and then ultimately getting my master's in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And so all that to say, by the time I entered medical school and realized this was my path was to be in Eastern medicine and Western medicine. I have a strong interest in public health. I really wanted to use these modalities, my medicine, for everybody. And I think that's really what led me to developing this idea of, if we circled in community and talked with our individual stories around difficult topics, loss, grief, rage against the system or oppression, and if we do this with enough people that are value aligned, that want to hear our stories, hold space, there's room for diversity of experiences in there. And I'm talking about being different races, different sexual backgrounds, gender backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, right? Like, my community was consciously created, not just physician-based, but everybody that helps in the field of taking care of patients themselves, patient advocates, caregivers, nurses, therapists, counselors. Like, if we all come together and I can hold and create a space where humans can human and collaborate and connect, this is the change that I see being needed in medicine. But I think that initial idea of diversity and being of service really came from having that Eastern medical background first. I think that was really like my formative medicine, which I'm so grateful for, was learning a philosophy of being before I went into medicine and the doing and the knowledge base. And I think that has really made all the difference. So shout out to anybody who has done things differently and thought maybe I'm doing it wrong, or this is going to take forever. There were definitely times in my path I thought that. But it really formed my medicine and my understanding of medicine and care.
Mm-hmm. And I think that even just within my osteopathic training, looking at like a somato-emotional release, like, sometimes if we're working with a patient and doing osteopathic manipulation, touching, um, healing in the way of, high velocity, low amplitude techniques, soft tissue work, things like that, and seeing how that mind body connection can be there and take people back to sometimes a traumatic event, or sometimes just an event that caused their actual injury. There's so much there to be considered when you look at different methods of medicine as well, like Eastern and Western coming together. I think that's just totally awesome and inspiring. So I'd love to hear more about your acupuncture practice as well in the future.
Yes, there's so many different ways to gain access to the deeper wisdom of the body. I think that's where it's like, where's the juice for the individual person? Is it, I'm a DO as well. So, is it through a somatic cranial sacral release, something more high velocity? Like there's so many different ways, Reiki, right? More energetic hands on the body, doing your own yoga practice, acupuncture, Ayurvedic, like there's so many different ways to play in that realm. And that's always what I've been attracted to. And what I have found, speaking of coaching, I'm a somatic embodied coach. I've always studied the somatics. And so it's been really interesting to be a coach this past year in online spaces, right? Like how do you lead people through a somatic experience when you're not in person? So interesting and challenging. And I think everybody that does the work that I do is like, this is really let us be more creative and have more reach. And so leading people through their own embodied experiences. And I will always say, the body holds truth. The body holds muscle memory. The body holds, the brain can really be a monkey mind. It can really lead us to, our brains were made to keep us safe, to not have us take these deep leaps. It will let us know, like, you should be afraid, you're doing something different, you're doing something edgy, like, who are you to talk about this? Who are you to be this? Respectable physicians don't do this, right? Like all these kind of things. And it's beautiful. It's like, oh, you're here to keep me safe. I love that. But as far as like the deeper wisdom of healing, of transformation, of really rewriting a script and a life, what's meaningful, what's purpose, for me, it has always been the stillness and being with my own body. And so that's the basis of my coaching, because that's what I've always studied. And that's where I got the most transformation. And I was someone who had read all the books about leaning in, about being confident, about positivity, about, confidence is catchy, leadership, all these things. But I would get stuck until I learned to really listen to myself and be with my own body and know my own timing and know what was the right decision for me, like really using my body as my mentor says, the GPS, the North Star. Once you have that technology in your system of knowing like what's right for you, what's not, what's a good partnership, what's not, like once you have that in your body system and you learn to trust yourself in your decisions, everything is just so much easier in whatever you want to accomplish, business, personal, or otherwise.
And when you look at this year and the pandemic and communicating with people via Zoom and, just maybe even spending more time by yourself, getting to know yourself, not having a lot of those outside distractions. I mean, if I can put a silver lining to the cloud of the pandemic, I think that, in some ways, I've learned quite a bit about myself and, how to sit through feelings and, communicate in ways where my words have to be, I don't know, through the Zoom and not interacting with people in person and not having that, touch with people or, being together and speaking about things that we care about. I mean, it's all been via Zoom. But I think that, spending a lot of time with myself has really done a lot of the things that you're talking about. But, I think I just realized that while speaking to you. So, I think there is a silver lining to this cloud in some ways.
Yes, it's interesting what I've studied now through Eastern medicine and then through my coaching, which is based on a tantric approach, which is a little bit different. So Eastern coaching philosophy, embodied philosophy, is about, and I see this in a lot of other coaches, it's about emptying the mind, sitting with yourself, being present, but really the idea of letting things move through so that you feel empty. It's a lot of making space. The study of Tantra in coaching is how to be in the fullest, most alive place with whatever is coming up. So if it's anger, if it's grief, being fully angered, fully in your grief, fully expressed, fully embodied. And that's the medicine that I teach. And so I love what you just said about, being able to sit with yourself alone. It's so challenging for so many people. We all have our different makeups. We all have our different triggers, and how, what we need to feel connected. Some people, and I'm thinking of my kids at this moment, my oldest is very extroverted, very social, very high touch. And so she's had to negotiate that. Whereas myself and my middle one are introverted by nature. And so this is oh, thank goodness. Where has this been all of my life that I can just be up at home and still connect with people, but have spaciousness, right? My coaching is about being visible, being a community leader, but I also lean heavily on my training of being a relationship intimacy coach as well, and really use that in every aspect of my business and everything else that I create in social spaces. So relationships and intimacy are funny, right? It has to do with who we are, wounding. Do we need more space in our relationships? Do we need more closeness? And so this year has been a challenge. I think for those of us that are really, wanting closeness, I see that with the people in my life that really need that high touch. That's an area. But I think for all of us, we're really realizing how much community is needed, and how much social media lets us connect with people. Being virtual lets us connect with people with an ease and with a beauty, right? I'm getting to see you in your home surroundings. You're getting to see me. There's an intimacy there that is quite beautiful. And so I've loved that. I've loved being able to do that. And for me, again, it comes back to Tantra, where it's this is what is, right? This is the situation we find ourselves in. So let's just be full with what is. We have this tendency to what's good about it, what's bad, what's right about this, what's wrong. It's just this is what it is. So let's be full with it, with all the things, with all the frustration that it brings up, with all of the beautiful spaciousness that it brings up as well. It's let's just be in it fully, because this moment will end. We will not always be in this place. So use all of that aliveness to make the most of this moment.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also an excellent point to say, in feeling those emotions, being present for that, whether the emotions make you comfortable or uncomfortable. I know just looking at the pandemic, some people buffer with food, alcohol, online shopping, gambling, things that we try to avoid these feelings. And what you're saying is, get into it, feel it, whatever that emotion is right now. If it's going to be anger, get that out. If it's fear, get that out. If it's pleasure, get that out. So, instead of trying to find ways to not feel our feelings, maybe responding to stress by eating when I come home from a, really stressful call or something like that. So, I think there's ways that I see your practice as being very helpful for people.
Yeah. So my main mentor is Mamagina, at the School of Womanly Arts. She's been a leader in everything about feminine embodiment, wrote the bestseller book called Pussy, quite scandalous, right? Reclaiming such a word that has been, I had to even look it up because I sometimes have to refresh myself, and it's still written as, incredibly negative word for female genitalia, like to really reclaim everything about women and aliveness and the emotionality and sensuality that we bring. So she's been my main mentor. And what's beautiful about her work and what I practice through working closely with her is the idea of that we're geared towards pleasure. We want to feel good. There's something in our conditioning that says to keep people safe, we're going to like bat them. We're going to tell them stronger, use your willpower, like bear down. There's this very like Puritan, nature to our society, but our natures are to be in pleasure. And so when we're under stress, we naturally reach for like beautiful items or a food experience or the excitement of gambling. Like we reach for these things sometimes out of unconsciousness, but sometimes because we really want a pleasurable experience. And this is kind of society's acceptable. It's funny. Those are the acceptable ways. Mention the word pussy, totally wrong, but have a few drinks every day and online gamble and shop and that's okay. It's like so interesting to me. So I think we're naturally like oriented to pleasure. And I think that's also what we see. And then the second piece, which you said so beautifully, is like, not only can we be full of like, what am I feeling right now? Oh, I'm angry, and realize how to embody it and alchemize it, use it for our goals, for our desires to get what we want in life. Our emotions are not there by accident. But we can actually even be more advanced practitioners and have a practice where every day, like I could put on a certain music, move my body a certain way, and I'm able to access anger like that. I'm able to access my grief like that because this is a practice of mine. I'm able to access my desire and turn on like that. So you actually have access to all of these all the time. And once you completely own that, you don't have external things making you angry because you can access your own anger and use that to move yourself. And so what other people do becomes a lot less important. The outside parts of your life, I think part of what happens on the outside is to like help you grow and mirror, but you can actually cultivate that in your own system so that you have access to like all of that emotional breath. And then what happens, like I said, then what happens on the outside is much less interesting what other people do. It becomes a very internal practice.
Wow, that was very, very interesting and deep. I'm thinking about that and wondering how I can do that in my life. That's amazing. So, wow,
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, especially, I mostly work with women. So especially as women, I mean, we feel deeply. Think about, I bet right now, if I said, what is making you like rageful, angry, like you have an ongoing list, right? Where you're like, oh yeah, that's in the world. And I want this relationship and I want a world that's this, right? Like, we have this technology built in our systems already because we are that's just part of our nature. So yes, all that to say, I'm deep in the embodied and the emotional alchemy component. That has been the most powerful work of my life and what satisfies me the most to work with clients.
And, I just kind of sit here and I think, wow, in my practice throughout my life as an OBGYN and a maternal fetal medicine specialist, I just see how women are so powerful. They, are pregnant, they carry a life, they, in labor, you see happiness, you see tears of joy, you hear screaming and, work. I guess they call it labor for a reason. And, all of that power that it takes to have that journey. So, yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's about owning the power in all of that so that it's not any different. Your tears are just as holy as the sound of your laughter, as your deep embodied rage at what you see in the world and what you want differently. It's all for your own benefit. It's all for your own empowerment. So that to me is what I have worked, and I'm still working with people who are masters at this, because that's, I'm talking about it in this kind of high level esoteric way, but in simplest forms, what people want. How do I walk in a room and influence people? How do I ask for that raise? How do I negotiate with my partner? How do I know if, like what comes up a lot in my community, do I stay in medicine? Is there some other passion that I should be pursuing? Is my ideal career combining both, or, working in one way or the other? All of those become really not simple, but really easy once you have owned and gotten right with exactly how you are, like your anger, your rage. Like once you stand in that, like that to me is leadership. That's when other people just want to come to you and give you opportunities and want to give you leadership, because you can hold your own nervous system. You could hold and lead everybody. You're not worried, like all of the management classes, like how do you deal with conflict and how do you bring out the best in people? Like when you can connect and are at such rightness with your own emotional states, you're naturally like negotiating conflict better. You're bringing out the best in the people that you lead. You're getting them clear on where they see themselves in a few years, and you're helping mentor them. Like all of this becomes so much easier, not simple, but easier once you've mastered that within your own system.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And tell me a little bit more about the school that you went to.
The school that I went to for
Mamagina.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So Mamagina has the School of Womanly Arts. She has been in, I think 25 years has been in this work. Many other people that I've studied with, Layla Martin, who is my Tantra coach, school that I went to, really everything. We're also students of Mamagina at a time. So many people in the women empowerment, women leadership piece have come from her school. So I have worked with her since 2000, probably about 5 years now. I time it to my crash and burn, which was being pregnant with my third baby. So I have to remember how old he is, but I was pregnant when I found her work. So 5 years, because he's 4. But it was really at that school that formed the basis of everything else that I've done. The idea of radical community, the idea of radical sisterhood, the idea that we really changed the narrative of from which is talked about a lot, from conflict and being out for yourself into radical collaboration, radical cooperation, and learning how to motivate and take each other higher, as opposed to what we tend to do as women, which is complain and compare and come from, the scarcity myth. This person has something, I will never get it then, right? It's kind of like I always think the basic kindergarten lessons, but they come up, they're real. They're real life lessons.
Sure. If there's anything that you could tell the listeners, what would be one of your biggest pieces of advice for people who are in training, or, people who are on, this journey of being, in medicine, or kind of finding themselves?
Yeah. And I love that you asked that, because, I would have been in my 3rd year of training, and so I had my acupuncture background first, and then I became a mom before I became a doctor. So I had 2 of my babies in medical school, and then my 3rd one in residency. And so I keep thinking, oh my goodness, I was told so much, sometimes well-intentioned, sometimes not, sometimes very toxic, from other women, advice about what was and was not, what would and would not be possible for me, because I was a doctor, because I had children, these things that blew my mind because I thought, I mean, I graduated from med school 2014, graduated from training 2018. So this is not, I don't know what year, you expect it to be like 1980s. I'm like not that old. But this is the culture that they were handed. And so this is how it's been played. And so my advice would be, to really invest, to really be gentle with yourself. I think that has to come first, especially if there's fellow people listening who are moms early in training. I would say, especially in medical school, beginning of residency, sometimes by the end, you have more of a camaraderie. Sometimes you don't. But especially in the beginning, be gentle with yourself. Realize that by nature of what you're doing, you are a superwoman. You are doing it right, doing it enough. I never felt that way. I always felt like I was doing something wrong because the culture told me that I must always be available to show up fully as a physician 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for medical training residency and probably beyond. At that time, I really wasn't sure, but at least for 10 years. And I couldn't do that, or so I thought, because I had a small child that needed me. And so my big advice would be to just be like fully present where you are. Realize that what you're doing is more than enough, that you're in a community of people, that it's never on you. You just show up fully, do your job fully, be full of gratitude, find ways to invest in your pleasure to make sure that you're still plugged into that desire that brought you into training, that desire to want to be a doctor. And there's many different ways to do that. More and more programs have mindfulness programs. Hopefully they're meaningful ones and not kind of like checkboxy ones, but, come join a community, join a podcast like this, like get mentorship from women that are doing it, that are embodying it, if it's not in your sphere, and just realize that that's possible. It's possible to ride that wave with all the hard work and still come out deeply wanting to be a doctor and deeply creating the life that you want, and to not sacrifice. This idea that to be a physician, that's not enough, that it must come with endless sacrifice at any time in any way that someone might ask of you, is really old news. It's really not that anymore. Enough people have done that, and we've seen the effects. We know the mental health effects. We know the suicide rates. We know the rates of divorce. We know the rates of children that didn't feel connected to parents, that were, by standard definitions, workaholics. Like, we know that did not work. So if the culture of your institution, which wasn't mine, is outdated in that way, like, come join a community and hear it be different. And don't think you have to do it yourself. Find other people that are like you. They're out there. I thought I was the only person. I thought I was doing it wrong. I was like this round peg trying to fit into the square thing. It wasn't until really this past year that I found all the other people that are like, yes, I think that way too. So find that if it's not in your sphere, and don't let that narrow thinking limit what is possible for you, or make you think that you need to sacrifice your life away for this, because those people will wake up at midlife and be like, what did I do all this for? Exactly. And then they'll come to like you or me and be like, how do I coach myself out of this? I made it through training and I'm miserable. So, realizing that everybody gets there. And if you're there earlier, you're doing it fine. That was a very long answer.
Oh, it was excellent. Totally excellent. Now, I just want to let the listeners know that in our show notes, we will have all of the ways that you can connect with Lisa Tharler, and we'll have social media handles, things like that. And, I just want to make sure that people know that we're here for you. If you're struggling, I love to bring other coaches, other physicians onto this program who creatively help people find their autonomy, whether it be personal or professional. So please reach out to Dr. Tharler if you feel that you have a connection with her. And thank you so much. I really do appreciate our time together.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. And, my communities are intentionally set up for trainees to have access. I know there are some physician groups that, keep it separate. I had such a calling to really have that, like I said, I really wanted, wish that I had access to this as a trainee. So even if you're early in training and you think, oh my goodness, I'm tapped, come and be kind of a fly on the wall, take what you need. Actually, I say that to everybody because even full physicians are quite tapped. All these social media groups are for you, take what you need, leave the rest. This is a place to be selfish and really get yourself filled up so that you can do the amazing work that you're going to do. So thank you so much. I love being in community with you. This has been so fun.
I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I know that you're out there changing lives everywhere. So it's beautiful.
Thank you.